Hello everybody, my name is Gadiki20122 and welcome to the final episode of Pokémon Fire Red. We are here to put this series to rest by talking about a few specific things that need to be discussed before we close the book on this particular game. And I'm not just here in Lavender Town to add to the ambience of things. We actually do have one specific thing that we need to do here. We need to talk to the nickname raider one last time. Hello, I'm the official name raider. Want me to rate the nicknames of your Pokemon? Yes, we are here to address one final nickname that has been suggested. And a nickname has been suggested for Raikou. And the interesting thing about Raikou's nickname suggestion is that we actually received two different recommendations for Raikou's nickname. So considering everything that has been presented, I think it's at least fair to at least acknowledge the two suggestions that were given. So first of all, Minor Mole suggested Raikou be named Zeus, which is considered the Greek god of thunder, amongst many other things. And then Nicardo Hole 2285 suggested that Raikou should be named Electro, presumably naming Raikou after the villain from Spider-Man who has the same name. And even though I do think Zeus is relatively more appropriate, I'm actually going to give this to Electro in this case, because Minor Mole has given us plenty of nicknames as is, and I feel that it's fair to give Nicardo his fair shot. So there you go, Nicardo. The final nickname of the series, and the nickname for Raikou is Electro, thanks to you. Now, like I said, we do have a few individual things that I wanted to talk about and address. And the first thing that I wanted to talk about is three Pokemon that we were not able to obtain during our playthrough. And that mainly comes down to the fact that I was not able to obtain the items necessary to get these Pokemon, as they are locked behind mystery gift events that have long since been discontinued. One of those items that we could have obtained is an item called the Aurora Ticket. And the Aurora Ticket would have allowed us to go to a place called Birth Island. And there isn't much to do on Birth Island except examine this little triangular structure that moves around as you interact with it. But if you interact with it in just the right way, you are able to catch the Pokemon Deoxys. Now, Deoxys is a very interesting Pokemon. This is one of the very first cases of a mythical Pokemon being available. Prior to this, there were only really two mythical Pokemon, or at least Pokemon that are now considered mythical Pokemon, and that would be Mew and Celebi. But the most notable thing about Deoxys in comparison to the other two is that unlike Mew and Celebi, Deoxys' stats are actually a lot more varied. What makes Deoxys unique and interesting is its ability to change forms, and his stats are distributed accordingly depending on what specific form that you acquire. Now, in most Pokemon games, you are able to change the form freely by having Deoxys interact with a specific set of meteors that are usually in some select location in the game. That is not the case here. In Gen 3 only, what specific form Deoxys assumes is strictly dependent on what specific game you have Deoxys exist in. When you fight Deoxys normally, it will be in its normal form. A form that, on paper, is meant to be the most well-balanced. Well, in practice, it's kind of more of a glass bayonet rifle. It has base 50 HP, defense, and special defense, which is pretty mediocre. But in exchange, it has 150 attack, 150 special attack, and 150 speed, making it an excellent sweeper, with it being able to use pretty much any attack first and being able to inflict massive amounts of damage as a result of it. However, these stats only apply in Fire Red and Leaf Green while you are fighting Deoxys, and are relatively irrelevant otherwise. Now, in our situation, in Fire Red, once we catch Deoxys, it actually changes from its normal form to its attack form, and will remain like that as long as it remains in the Fire Red cartridge. Attack form is a much better version of the normal form, at least in terms of offensive capabilities. Its attack and special attack skyrocket to an astonishing 180, which is the highest offensive stats in the game. There is no Pokemon that hits harder than attack form Deoxys. And it maintains its impressive 150 speed as well, meaning that more likely than not, this Pokemon is going to go first and obliterate anything in its path. However, do be warned that Deoxys attack has very, very minimal defenses. It trades base 30 defense and special defense from normal to attack, bringing it from base 50 to base 20. So it has paper-thin defenses, but exceptional attack. It's definitely worth the trade-off if you're willing to play Deoxys right, but you still need to be extremely careful with attack form Deoxys. Now, if we were to have Deoxys exist in Leaf Green, Deoxys would be in its defense form, and its stats are a little more well-balanced, but still much heavier focus in defenses. It is base 160 defense and special defense, giving it some of the highest defense stats in the game, only being superseded by things such as Shuckle. It has relatively decent attack and special attack. It's not necessarily the greatest thing in the world, but for a super defensive mon, it's not bad either. And its speed is not bad as well. It's actually one of the faster of the more defensive Pokemon. And even though we will not be seeing it at all in this game in any capacity, if you were to trade Deoxys to Pokemon Emerald version, you would see Deoxys speed form, the form that I personally think is the most balanced of the four, at least in terms of its attacks and defenses. It obviously still prioritizes speed, having an astonishingly high base 180 speed, pretty much guaranteeing that this Pokemon will go first no matter what, but it still has pretty good attack and defenses all around. Base 95 attack and special attack, and then base 90 defense and special defense is not bad at all, and it's still very respectable. Obviously, it's not going to hit anywhere near as hard as its normal form or its attack form, but Deoxys speed still has its benefits. But because Deoxys has so many different forms, and which specific version of Deoxys you have is in direct correlation to which specific version of the game you're playing, especially in the case of Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green, it's very hard for me to recommend an ideal moveset. That said, it is worth pointing out that what specific moves Deoxys learns leveling up strictly depends on what specific form it has. So, just for the sake of not being overly long with this explanation, I'm only going to go over the moveset Deoxys attack and defense know, as its normal form and speed form are relatively irrelevant to us. With its attack form, Deoxys will learn Psychic at level 25, which is stupidly early, Super Power at level 30, Cosmic Power at level 35, Zap Cannon at level 40, which is a really powerful Electro-type move that is guaranteed to paralyze, Hyper Beam at level 50, and at level 45, it learns its signature attack, Psycho Boost, which is basically a Psychic-type overheat and is the strongest Psychic-type move in the game, bar none. Now, if you were to obtain Deoxys in Leaf Green and try leveling up from there, it would learn a lot more interesting moves. It learns Knock Off at level 15 and Spikes at level 20, moves that are very, very good for competitive defensive walls. It still learns Psychic at level 25, but after that, it learns Snatch at level 30, which is a move that basically steals the opponent's move that it would use on itself. For example, if I were to try to have Ragna use Sword Stance, Deoxys could use Snatch and steal that Sword Stance for itself and instead boost its own attack by 2 stages. Does this really matter for defense mode? No, not really, but it's still an interesting move, and if you're fighting against another wall that's also prone to boosting its defenses, it can be useful. Of course, it also gets Amnesia and Ire Defense at level 35, moves that boost its special defense and physical defense respectively. It learns Recover at level 40, which as we've seen is a very useful move to restore half the user's HP. It learns Counter and Mirror Coat at level 50, moves that, as we discussed before, are able to counter any specific attack that is thrown against it at double the damage. And even though it is not prone to using its attack, like the attack form, the defense form Deoxys is able to learn its signature attack, Psycho Boost at level 45. Obviously, it's more suited for the attack form, but still, it can be useful. All of that said, Even though Deoxys is a phenomenal Pokemon to use, the fact that we can't really use it in the modern day is a little bit disappointing. Not only is this event discontinued, but the only way to obtain Deoxys nowadays is in Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, which are games that, yes, allow you to obtain Deoxys, and yes, do allow you to change it into whatever form you want, but that's as far as it's going to go, because the service that would allow Deoxys to go into any more modern Pokemon games has since been discontinued. So it's just kind of stuck in limbo for now. If by some miracle you are able to obtain this Pokemon in Gen 3, it may be a bit of a hassle to be able to actually use Deoxys in the way that you intend to use it. It can still be useful. Another mystery gift event item that we would have been able to obtain 20 years ago is the Mystic Ticket item. And this allows us to travel to Naval Rock. And at Naval Rock, there are actually 2 Pokemon that we are able to catch there. Again, provided that we would actually be able to use this item. The first Pokemon that we would be able to obtain if we were to climb to the top of Naval Rock is Ho-Oh, the signature Pokemon of both Pokemon Gold and Heart Gold. Now, Ho-Oh is considered a box art legendary. It has a stat total that is relatively equal to Mewtwo, and as such, it has ridiculously good stats all across the board. Its highest stats are, weirdly enough, 130 attack and then 154 special defense, which is a little bit strange for a fire flying type, but that doesn't mean that it's bad. Ho-Oh still has incredibly good special attack at 110. Meaning that no matter what type of move you teach, Ho-Oh is still going to be hitting really hard and can take hits really well as well. Now, as far as actually using Ho-Oh, even though it does have really good stats, it does suffer from a couple of problems. First of all, it is still a fire flying type, and even though fire flying, as I have mentioned before, is really good offensively, defensively, it is not the absolute best type combination, as the 2 individual types do not do anything to benefit each other and only exacerbate the problems that it has with a lot of common types, including water, electric, and rock. Additionally, Ho-Oh's moveset, while good, doesn't really get to its full potential until you get to the much later levels. It learns Gust at level 20, and that is the only flying type move that it learns through level up. It learns Recover at level 33, which is really good, especially since it has good defenses. It learns Fire Blast at level 44, and that's one of only 2 fire attacks it actually learns through level up. It learns Sunny Day at level 55, which is generally beneficial for fire types. It learns Swift at level 66, which a little late to be learning that. And then it gets its signature attack, Sacred Fire, at level 77. A 100 base power special fire type attack, because of course fire type moves are all special in this game, that has a 50% chance of burning the opponent and is guaranteed to unthaw either the user of Sacred Fire or whatever unfortunate frozen soul gets hit with Sacred Fire. But the problem is that Ho-Oh's stats do not fully complement Sacred Fire's ability to inflict damage. Luckily, in later generations, Sacred Fire is actually changed to a physical attack. How this works, I'm not sure, but at least they recognize that the one Pokemon that's actually able to use Sacred Fire is actually best off if Sacred Fire is a physical attack. So they did make that right call. That said, Ho-Oh is capable of learning some decent moves through TMs, including Hidden Power, Sunny Day, Hyper Beam, Giga Drain, Solar Beam, Thunderbolt, Thunder, Earthquake Return, Psychic, Shadow Ball, Shockwave, Flamethrower, and of course Aerial Ace. But unfortunately, as a fire flying type, Ho-Oh just doesn't have the moves that allow it to reach its full potential, especially as a flying type. Still, it is a legendary Pokemon, it has legendary stats, and it has a legendary compatibility with a lot of good moves otherwise. If you want to use it, and more importantly are able to use it, then by all means, do so. The nice thing is, Ho-Oh only got better in later generations, and more importantly, Ho-Oh became substantially more accessible in later generations. Pretty much every generation following this one, with the sole exception of Gen 5, Ho-Oh is obtainable in some way in the game that you play. Now, that said, does that mean that Ho-Oh is impossible to obtain in Gen 3 without the item? No, it's not, but In order to obtain Ho-Oh in Gen 3, you have to 100% an entirely separate game called Pokemon Coliseum, and oh man, I'm not gonna go into every specific thing that you need to do in that game, but just know that while some may consider it worth it, and many would consider the obtaining of Ho-Oh in Pokemon Coliseum to be the ultimate trophy of your mastery of Gen 3 mechanics in general, it doesn't change the fact that obtaining Ho-Oh in that game, while arguably worth it, is still an incredibly tedious and time-consuming endeavor. There is no fast way to get Ho-Oh. Now, continuing on in our hypothetical trek on Naval Rock, if we were to go to the bottom of Naval Rock after getting our friend Ho-Oh, we could obtain another legendary Pokemon, Lugia. Now, Lugia is a very interesting Pokemon because this is one of the very first legendary Pokemon with the stat distribution that it has to focus more on the defensive side. While it does have decent attack and special attack at 90 each, where it really shines is its other stats. 106 HP, 130 defense, and 154 special defense, not to mention 110 speed. This thing can go first and it'll take hits very, very well. And the nice thing is that its moveset does a decent job of complementing this. Learn Safeguard, Recover, Ancient Power, all moves that can be used to help benefit its stats and its defenses. And you might think that that's all there is to it, but no, Lugia is still capable of learning some decent moves through level up. It learns Hydro Pump at level 44, Rain Dance at level 55 to help boost the power of Hydro Pump. It learns Future Sight level 99 for some reason. And it learns its signature move Aeroblast at level 77, which is another base 100 power flying type move that has a high critical hit chance. That may seem somewhat counterintuitive for what is supposed to be a defensive wall, but again, that just means it has a really powerful move to offset the fact that it's a defensive Pokemon. And like Ho-Oh, it is compatible with a lot of really good moves that allow you to boost its offensive utility further. Calm Mind, Toxic, Light Screen, Protect, Double Team, Reflect, Rest, Skill Swap, not to mention a ton of really good offensive moves such as Giga Drain, Iron Tail, Thunderbolt, Thunder, Earthquake, Return, Psychic, and Shadow Ball. This thing is an absolute defensive beast. And if you want to get this Pokemon, and again, are actually able to obtain it, it's totally worth it. Now, like Ho-Oh, Lugia is obtainable in pretty much every generation after this one, except for Gen 5, in much easier ways. So you're not out of options when getting Lugia in later games. As for Gen 3, without the ability to go to Naval Rock, the only other way to get Lugia is to play through the entire main story of Pokemon XD and capture the Shadow Lugia in that game and transfer to this game. Fortunately, unlike Ho-Oh, you don't have to necessarily 100% the game, you just have to complete the main story. Not only does completing the main story allow you to trade Pokemon from Pokemon XD to the mainline Pokemon games, but more importantly, the Lugia you obtain in that game is essentially the penultimate boss fight of the game. Spoilers, I guess. So if you want to go for Lugia and try to get it to a mainline game, I would try to go for this one over Ho-Oh because it's a lot more reasonable to obtain this one by comparison. And those are the last bios of the series, guys. I know it's kind of disappointing for me to talk about Pokemon that we can't really obtain in this game anymore, but I felt that it was worth discussing, as back then, they were legitimately obtainable, and they were essentially a part of this game's code. So I think it's fair to at least acknowledge that these were a thing that existed. Now, on to our next item of business. The next item of business that I wanted to address here is the Pokemon Daycare Center, the original one. Now, eagle-eyed viewers may recall that I left a Clefairy here earlier in the game. Like way earlier on in the series. And I have not touched that Clefairy since. So, since this is the last video, I figured let's take a minute to address that Clefairy and see how far along it's gone. Alright, let's see where we're at now. We've gone through many thousands of steps, so I have no idea how far along it's gonna get. Clefairy has grown a lot. Yes, quite a lot, I'd say. Let me see. My level has grown by 38. Aren't I great? You owe me 3,900 for the return of this Pokemon. All right, I'll take it. Let's see what we got. So level 38, that means, oh my God, really? So this Clefairy is at level 48. Oh my goodness, look at that moveset. Cosmic Power, Moonlight, Light Screen, and more importantly, Meteor Mash. We got it. We got Meteor Mash. Oh, that is good. That is good. This Clefairy is pretty much ready to go in terms of evolution. At this point, all I would need to do is use a Moonstone. Do I have one? I most certainly do. Let's give this to Clefairy. What? Clefairy's evolving! Congratulations! Your Clefairy evolved into Clefable! We got another new Pokemon right at the end. Now back here in Cerulean City, if you recall way back on the first time that we got onto Nugget Bridge, our rival Sheldon gave us a specific key item. More specifically, the Fame Checker. Now, we've gone through a lot in our journey, and as you can see here, there is still a handful of specific points of query that we were not able to find regarding very specific people. So what I would like to do, just for the moment, is I'm going to go around the region and find the specific people that we need to interact with in order to complete the Fame Checker, because I don't want to leave this entirely untouched. Hopefully this does not require me to get into any very intense battles. First thing that we need to address here for the Fame Checker for Professor Oak, the Oak Pokemon Research Lab. Yes, this does count as one of them. Now, inside Professor Oak's research lab, I believe one of these assistants here should be able to talk to us. There's actually one specific bit of information that we can get about Professor Oak that is only available after we defeat the Elite Four. So is it you? Hi, Griffin. I bet you've become good friends with your Pokemon. By the way, did you know about Daisy? If you show Daisy your Pokemon, she can tell you how much it likes you. Occasionally, she will even groom a Pokemon for you. This is a secret, so please don't tell anyone. Well, you heard her, everyone that is watching this video. Don't tell anyone. I'm not sure that that's it. Are you the one? Professor Oak is going to have his own radio show soon. Oh! That's right, in Gold and Silver, he has his own radio show. The program will be called Professor Oak's Pokemon Seminar. So here in the trainer school in Viridian City, there should be a Pokemon journal here somewhere. Pokemon Journal. Special feature, Professor Oak, the Pokemon researcher. Professor Oak reportedly lives with his grandchildren, Daisy and Sheldon. I love that it adjusts specifically according to what name I give them. So I do believe, yes, so that covers all the lore regarding Professor Oak. Now we have to get to Daisy. Back in the Pokemon fan club, there should be a thing from the assistant here. Our chairman really does adore his Pokemon. But the person who is most liked by Pokemon is Daisy, I think. Okay, so that covers that. And then back in the Celadon Mansion, if we were to talk to the old woman who gave us the tea again. Oh, hello, dearie. Did you enjoy my tea? By the way, dear, are you by any chance from Palatown? A girl from Palatown, Daisy, she enjoys tea every day. She visits the Celadon department store to buy some tea. So there's another little bit of lore about Daisy. It says she likes to go to the Celadon department store to get tea. Now, this last little blurb about Daisy can be very easy to miss. So back in the water maze near Five Island, if we talk to this old man who gave us the Togepi egg after hatching Togepi, with Togepi in our party, he says this. Oh, hello. That's a cute Togepi. Seeing it reminds me of a sweet little girl I met while traveling. She was gently grooming Pokemon. She was a little angel. That little girl's name, I think it was Daisy. Yup. And like that, that takes care of all the lore surrounding Daisy. Very interesting. I'm so glad that Daisy got the appreciation in this game that she deserves, because she's such an underrated character, if I'm being honest. Now, fortunately for us, we were actually pretty good about obtaining the lore for Brock. We didn't really miss much. There was only one specific item that we did not get as far as Brock's lore is concerned. And that is in one of these shelves here. It's crammed full of Pokemon books, crammed full of Pokemon books, crammed full of Pokemon books. Ah, here we go. Pokemon Journal. Special feature, Pewter Gym Leader Brock. Brock rarely laughs, but it is said to be unable to stop if he starts. He truly is an endless source of comedy. Now, for Misty's situation, one of the trainers in here has a little bit of lore to give us surrounding Misty. Misty is a trainer who's going to keep improving. She won't lose to someone like you. Also in Cerulean City, if we were to go to the Pokemon Center, this specific bookshelf, Pokemon Journal. Special feature, Cerulean Gym Leader Misty. Misty is said to worship Lorelei of the Elite Four. Very interesting that she kind of aspires to be like Lorelei, but I guess that makes sense since they both use water Pokemon in many regards. So shifting our way to the Vermilion City Pokemon Center, if we were to go to that specific bookshelf, Pokemon Journal. Special feature, Vermilion Gym Leader Lieutenant Surge. Lieutenant Surge is rumored to have been a pilot while home in America. He used the electricity generated by Pokemon to power his plane. Another implication that Lieutenant Surge is just straight up an American amongst the many quote-unquote Japanese people here. So there you go. That should take care of all the lore surrounding Lieutenant Surge. Now on to Erica. On the second floor of the Celadon Mansion, we can find yet another Pokemon Journal. Special feature, Celadon Gym Leader Erica. Rumor has it that if you peek into Celadon Gym, you can often see Erica snoozing. A thing that would come up many times in subsequent generations. And I do believe that covers Erica. No, it does not. Looks like the rest of what we need is in the Celadon Gym itself. Looks like I really neglected to talk to some of the trainers. Blech, I hope Erica wipes you out. Our leader Erica might be quiet, but she's famous around here. So I believe this trainer is the one we actually need to get the lore from. And then I guess Erica is one other thing. You are cataloging Pokemon? I must say I'm impressed. I would never collect Pokemon if they were unattractive. There we go. Now Erica is complete. It's weird that two bits of the lore surrounding Erica, but like each come from Erica. That's a tad strange, but whatever. I can dig it. As for some of the lore we missed surrounding Koga, we need to talk to this girl first. My father is the gym leader of this town. I'm trained to use poison Pokemon as well as my father. Oh, so this is Charlene. That's actually really cool. Charlene is the Fuchsia City gym leader in Pokemon Gold, Silver, and then Heart Gold and Soul Silver. I forgot that she actually does have a proper appearance in this game, even though she is officially unnamed. So there you go. There's your little Charlene cameo for the day. Okay, in this house in the Safari Zone, there is this old man here that we need to talk to. The Safari Zone's huge, wouldn't you say? Fuchsia's gym leader Koga patrols the grounds every so often. Thanks to him, we can play here knowing that we're safe. Yes, of course Koga would come here to confuse his enemies. And then if we were to go to the Warden's house, I believe one of these shelves, Pokemon Journal. Special feature, Fuchsia Gym Leader Koga. Koga is said to have a thorough knowledge of medicine. He even concocts medicine to nurse his Pokemon to health. I guess when one has a good understanding of poisons, you also have to have a good way of understanding how to heal Pokemon, so that's actually really cool that Koga's able to do that. Now, there are two other bits of Sabrina lore that we did not cover, and I believe one of them can be found here. Pokemon Journal. Special feature, Saffron Gym Leader Sabrina. People say that Sabrina can communicate with her Pokemon during battle without speaking. That is very interesting, but also very true. And obviously, I'm standing in the Saffron City Pokemon Center. Now I gotta find the right person to talk to, and that's gonna take a minute. And the last bit of lore that we missed for Sabrina can be found in the middle right tiled trainer of her gym. And he says, Sabrina just wiped out the karate master next door. Very interesting. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to find my way out. Now, moving on to Blaine, there isn't much that we missed regarding Blaine and the lore surrounding him. However, there is one thing that we miss, and that is this picture back here. It's a photo of Blaine and Mr. Fuji. They're standing shoulder to shoulder with big grins. And that covers the extra bit of lore. So now we know that Blaine had a relationship with Mr. Fuji of some kind. And, you know, if you're able to kind of connect the dots in certain regards, you can kind of maybe work out what it is that Mr. Fuji and Blaine were working on. Hintity hint hint. Now, moving on to Giovanni, one person that I neglected to talk to was the advisor in the gym. Blow me away! Giovanni was the gym leader of Viridian? Yep, that's it. That's the lore. He's the gym leader of Viridian. How do you not know that? What do you think signed your checks? And the last little bit of lore about Giovanni that we missed was in the Rocket Warehouse. If we were to talk to the scientist that got the sapphire from us originally, what, you again? You're not Giovanni's kid, are you? No, that can't be right. Giovanni's kid has red hair. You don't have any reasons for bugging me. Leave me alone. Yeah, this is actually the game that implied it. Isn't that neat, guys? Everyone thinks that Heart Gold Soul Silver is the one that converted, but nope. This little bit of lore here implies that Silver was Giovanni's son. Ha 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 ha! Now that takes care of the gym leaders, and now we're going to move on to the Elite Four members, as they also have their own Fame Checker entries. We've covered about half of Lorelei so far, but the next one that we need to cover is in the Pokemart on 4 Island. If we were to talk to this gentleman here, we've had a great and powerful trainer grow up on this island. I bet even you knowed her. It's Lorelei, the Elite Four. When Lorelei was just a tyke, I taught her about Pokemon. So this is the guy who trained her in doing all the things Pokemon. Very interesting. Also on Island 4, if we were to talk to this specific old woman, I believe, we get some new bit of lore with her after we have taken care of the Team Rocket grunts in the Icefall Cave. Lorelei has gone back. The Lapras she has, I imagine it used to be the one she met as a child. I believe it was an Icefall Cave that she caught it. Perhaps that Pokemon has been with her ever since. So that kind of confirms that the Lapras that we've been fighting against has been the same Lapras that she caught way back in the day. Now there's one more bit of lore for Lorelei's, well, lore. Back in the 5 Island Pokemon Center, Pokemon Journal. Special feature, Elite Four's Lorelei. Known for her logical, calculated, and cool battling style, Lorelei has a surprising secret. Which is... how's that lore? That's just teasing at that point. It's not like we don't know all the lore for Lorelei, because of course, we've now obtained all of them. Now on to Bruno. Now, somewhere on Island 2, there should be a woman that has some lore about Bruno. Are you it? Listen, did you know? A famous trainer came to the island a little while back. He's one of the Elite Four. His name is Bruno. He went away disappointed when he found out they were all sold out of Rage candy bars. Interesting. That is the one unique item that is not available in this game straight out. But it's weird that Bruno wants Rage candy bars of all things. Whatever. Back near Island 1, if we were to talk to this karate fighter in the hot springs, after an honest day of training, nothing beats a relaxing soak in the hot spring pool. Bruno, who's a senior ahead of me, visits the spa on occasion. He comes to rehab injuries, both his own and his Pokemon's. Very interesting. It's good to know that Bruno cares about his body as well as the physical shape of his Pokemon. Not just getting them strong, but also just kind of keeping them feeling healthy. So if we were to go to the Pokemon Trainers Fan Club in Saffron City, I believe... Pokemon Journal. Special feature, Elite Four's Bruno. Bruno apparently joined the Elite Four out of his burning ambition to battle the best trainers. That makes sense. Though personally, I still think it's a little weird that Bruno goes so long without actually standing up. It's a weird thing. It's like there's so many trainer sprites of Bruno where he's just kind of sitting down. It's not until, again, where credit is due, Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, where he actually stands up. He's so eager to fight strong trainers, yet he's not willing to stand up to face them. Kind of weird. Now, as for Agatha, most of the lore that we've gotten for Agatha so far has just been strictly from her. However, there is this specific karate fighter here, which actually has 2 bits of lore for Agatha. One of which is actually only available now that we have beaten the Elite Four after they've powered up. So only now are we actually able to get all the lore. Agatha's ghost-type Pokemon are horrifyingly terrifying in toughness. I took my fighting-type Pokemon and raised them to the max. I went at Agatha feeling pretty confident, but she whooped us. That old lady's also got a really short fuse too. It doesn't take anything to get that scary lady hollering. Now, if we were to go to the Pokemart in aisle 6 and talk to this old woman here, play with Pokemon lots and live a long life. Take Agatha, for example. She set a record for being the oldest ever Elite Four member. She spurs me to do bigger things. So yeah, Agatha kind of is an inspiration for older women, because not most... I'm gonna just stop there. And then if we were to go to the aisle 7 Pokemon Center, Pokemon Journal. Special feature, Elite Four's Agatha. In her youth, Agatha and Professor Oak were rivals who vied for supremacy as trainers. Oh, that is so adorable. I would have loved to see that. That's so cute. Moving on to Lance, the only bit of lore that we've gotten for Lance so far has been strictly from Lance himself. But there should be a woman somewhere in Saffron City that should give us some more info about him. Are you it? This fan club, no one here has a clue. How could they not recognize the brilliance that is Lance? He stands for justice. He's cool and yet passionate. He's the greatest, Lance. Well, there we go. Somewhere in the Celadon department store, there should be another little blurb about Lance somewhere. We have a customer, Lance, who occasionally comes. He always buys capes. Of course he does. I wonder, does he have many identical capes at home? That is so funny, actually. Of course he would buy a bunch of capes. Now, going back to the Indigo Plateau, after defeating Lance after he gets powered up, I believe you need to talk to this guy here, if he'll let me. Maybe becoming an Elite Four member is in the blood. From what I've heard, Lance has a cousin who's a gym leader somewhere far away. Ooh, interesting. Little bit of lore about Lance and Claire for the future. Very nice. But that's not the only bit of lore about Lance we could find at the Indigo Plateau. I believe if we go here, Pokemon Journal. Special feature, Elite Four's Lance. Lance's grandfather is thought to be the elder of a famous clan of Dragon Masters. Ooh, I wonder what famous clan of Dragon Masters they could be talking about. Probably not the one you're thinking of. Now, you might think that that takes care of that, because that takes care of all the gym leaders and the Elite Four members. However, there are still 2 other individuals that we need to take a look at. And that is Bill and Dr. Fuji. We actually did get a bit more lore about Fuji while I was working on others, because the blurb about Blaine with Dr. Fuji counts for both Blaine and Fuji. But we still have some more to work on. But first, let's focus on Bill. Now, I believe we talked to Celio again. Hello. Griffin, I've been hearing rumors about you. By the way, Griffin, you're from Palatown, aren't you? I've heard it's a quiet and pleasant place. Bill's hometown is Goldenrod City, where his folks still live. I've heard that it's quite the festive, bustling city. I'd like to go there one day. So there's actually 3 little blurbs about Bill that Celio is supposed to provide, but it's kind of random as to which one that he will provide, so I just kind of have to keep trying at it. Griffin, what's your favorite kind of Pokemon? Bill is a Pokemaniac, so he loves every kind. Apparently, the first one he caught was an Abra. That makes sense, considering where Bill lives. Griffin, is there anything that you can't stand? Apparently, Bill simply can't stand stomach milk at all. Okay. Oh, he can't stomach milk at all. Okay, that makes a lot more sense. So, I believe that covers all the lore for Bill, if I am not mistaken. Celio literally provides half the lore to know about Bill, but it is still very interesting. So if you want to get Celio to say all 3 phrases regarding Bill, you just need to keep entering and exiting the Pokemon Center until he actually ends up saying the little bit about Bill that you need. So that takes care of that. Now on to Mr. Fuji. Now in the Lavender Town Pokemon Center, I believe this guy here, I recently moved to this town. I hear that Mr. Fuji's not from these parts originally either. Okay, so a little bit of detail implying that Miss Fuji is not necessarily from here. And then I believe in Mr. Fuji's house, Pokemon Fan Magazine, monthly grand prize drawing. The application form is gone. It's been clipped out. Someone must have applied it already. And yes, that really does count as a bit of the lore. And then last but not least, if we go to the Cinnabar Island Pokemon Center and go to the bookshelf here, Pokemon Journal, special feature, Mr. Fuji of Pokemon House. Editor, the shy Mr. Fuji turned down our interview requests. He is a kindly man who is adored and respected in Lavender Town. Well, that's very nice, but it's also somewhat strange that Mr. Fuji declined to answer any questions. And that is everything that can be done in Pokemon Fire Red, or at least among our available options. This has been a phenomenal journey, and I hope that this has been a very entertaining Let's Play for all of you. But I believe that this is really, truly the end. So next time, something different. See you guys then.